Hi guys, it's week 12 of Sisters in Shape Adventures and Competing, and that means it's peak week, which means that my time is pretty short and pretty valuable. So I'm actually doing this video on my drive to work, which is pretty far. I have to drive 45 minutes this week, and I don't know if I've mentioned, but I'm an accountant, and similar to Erica, we're both CAs, went to the same university. Both have pretty demanding jobs. So we're doing all of this fitness stuff and having to work, potentially more than 8 hours a day. And it can be pretty demanding and time consuming. So I apologize for the video in the car, but that's life. And that's the life of a fitness competitor who works. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what's going on with peak week. I'm not going to give you too many specifics because as Stephanie mentioned in her video, it's something you really have to play with and is personal to your body and where you are at the beginning of the week and so on and so forth. So there's kind of 3 or 4 things that you manipulate during peak week. First one is water, and water is really the focus. So all the other manipulations that you do during peak week are about trying to manipulate your water. So the other ones that you manipulate are your carbs, your salts, and then potentially the amount of fat and protein that you use. But that's really secondary to the carbs, and it's really just to try to get you the amount of calories that you need to maintain your body while hitting your carb targets. So it's really mainly the water, salt, and carbs. And the salt and the carbs help you to get the water that you want in your body in the right way. Your muscles are made of mostly water. So everything that you do during this week is to try to make sure the water is inside your muscles and not outside your muscles. Because if your water is between your muscles and your skin, you're gonna look washed out, you're gonna look flat, and you may even look a little fatter than you actually are. Obviously, no competitors who get on stage are what anyone would call fat, but those lights are pretty unforgiving. And if you're carrying a little excess water, or you did your peak wrong and you spilled over, it can have a pretty drastic effect on the way you look on stage, even if you look great in person. So for the water, what a lot of people do and what I'm doing is a water load. And then a water cut. So a water load is where you slowly increase your water for a few days, or even maybe the week before, and then you cut it down as it comes close to the show. And you usually don't start cutting your water until the Thursday night. Now, a water load is relative to your normal intake of water. Much like everything in dieting and exercise, it's all relative to what your normal is. I normally drink 4 to 6 liters a day. I thought I drank less, and then I was trying to water load with 6 liters and realized, no, that's just what I normally drink. So I'm actually, I'm going up a little higher until Wednesday, and I'll have lots of water in me and be peeing every 2 seconds. It's the worst part of peak week. It should really be called pee week. Trademark. So then you've got the salt manipulation. And salt manipulation can happen pretty early in the week for some people. This year I'm doing it earlier because I'm in figure, so I want to look a little harder. Last year I waited until Wednesday to cut out salt. But the important thing is not to cut out salt in your normal diet. And I rant about this to people all the time. Salt is not bad for you people. It's really not, especially if you exercise all the time, because you're sweating out salt. And so you need to replace that salt with salt in your diet in order for your muscles to function properly. Because salt is an electrolyte, and it helps your muscles contract. So if you don't have salt in your system, you're going to get cramps and it's going to be a bad time. So eat salt. I eat probably 4,000 to 5,000 milligrams of salt a day, which is way more than the recommended daily allowance of 1,500 to 2,300, which is the Heart Association recommendations, which were only developed because that is the minimum amount of salt that you can consume while maintaining an appropriate number of calories. So it really has nothing to do with health. But look it up. There's lots of research out there. Salt is not bad for you. And if you have lots of salt in your diet, when you then cut your salts, your body reacts more strongly. Because if you're already only eating 2,500 milligrams, say, and then you cut it down to 1,500 milligrams, well, that's not a very big difference. Your body's going to adapt to that pretty quickly. Whereas for me, say I'm eating 5,000 milligrams a day of salt, and I cut that down to 1,500, well, that's a really big difference. My body's going to lose water pretty quickly because salt keeps water in your body. I don't know how many of you took high school biology, but that's osmosis. So the more salt that's in your cells, the more water is in your cells. The less salt, the less water. So salt manipulation can help you shed some water. However, you do have to be careful because the amount of salt in your cells can also affect the way your muscles look. If you don't have the salt there, you can also look flat because there's going to be no water in your muscles. Now, the idea is to get rid of that water at the beginning of the week and then replace that water towards the end, which is what you do with the carb manipulation. So, towards the end of the week, when you're cutting your water, say you're drinking 1 liter to 2 liters on Thursday and maybe just 1 liter on Friday, that's when you can refill some of the water that's actually in your muscles because you're going to start carving up. Some people start carving up on Thursday. I'm probably going to start on Friday morning, just because I am pretty muscular, so I don't want to fill out too much and look ridiculous. Carbs bring water with them, and carbs go into your muscles. You're also doing all these depletion workouts during the week to try to get all of the glycogen, which is your stored carbohydrate sources, out of your muscles, so that there's lots and lots of room for these carbohydrates at the end of the week. So by the time the end of the week rolls around and you start eating carbs again, your muscles are starved for them and they absorb all of these carbs, and with those carbs so for every 1 gram of carb, 3 to 4 grams of water are stored. And that goes and gets pulled into the muscles. So some of that will be from the water you're drinking throughout the day, but ideally, a lot of that is going to come from the subcutaneous water, so the water between your muscle and your skin. And that gets sucked into the muscle, and it gives you this shrink-wrapped appearance. And that's where your skin all of a sudden gets really tight to your muscles, and your muscles swell, and you look great. So that's the idea behind peak week, and that's what people are aiming for. Unfortunately, because you don't do these manipulations all the time, and because, especially for me, this is only my second show, you aren't necessarily familiar with how your body's going to react, and you can really mess up your physique. So if you're doing really drastic things during peak week, there's a lot of room for error. You really want to do your research. A lot of people try to do way too many carbs on the last few days, and they have a spillover effect, which is where they eat too many carbs, and so that water and that carb has nowhere to go. So it goes between the skin and the muscle, and you end up looking washed out. So you don't want to do that. One of the ways that you can actually correct for that is by having salt, because that'll increase the amount of water that the muscles can hold on to and might help clean up some of the water that's spilled over. So that'll happen on the day of the show if you need to. You can have a saltier meal. I know Lane Norton has success with a meatball sub. I can't do that because I can't do gluten. So no sub for me, but I'll have something with salt on hand just in case I do spill over. I probably won't, because I'm being pretty moderate with my carb intake until the day of the show, and then it's just going to be based on how I look. And peak week is so dialed in that you basically change things on a daily basis. You have a plan. Of course you have a plan. But the idea is that if you're not looking full enough, or if you're leaning out too quickly, that you manipulate things on a daily basis so that you end up looking exactly how you want to look like on stage. So it's a pretty nerve-wracking week, and there's a lot of thought that goes into it. And all this thought is occurring while you're carb depleted, which means your brain is not functioning, and you don't get to have, whatever treat you want that's clean. Like even coffee, I'm trying to limit that to 1 cup a day because it can dehydrate you, and during the dry out process you actually want as much water in your system as possible, so you don't want to have too much coffee, which doesn't help, because coffee would definitely aid in the whole mental fogginess from the carb depletion. So that's the gist of peak weeks, of how most people do it, and is how I'm doing it this year, because I'm a little afraid that I wasn't quite lean enough. But the ideal situation is that you're already in the condition you want to be on stage, and your peak week is just used for fine-tuning. So you don't have to do as drastic water manipulation. You don't have to do as drastic salt manipulation. You still carb up, but it's not too extreme, and you can maybe do that more in the beginning, so that by the end of the week you're dialed in. And that's something that's becoming more popular, and is something I'm going to aim to do for my next competition, if I'm a little leaner and a little happier with the way I look. But I feel like nobody's ever happy with the way they look a week out from competition. You're always criticizing yourself. So we'll see how I look on stage. So that's the last vlog before the competition. I'll definitely be posting lots of pics from the competition with Stephanie and Erica, and I'll do one more vlog, at least one more vlog after the competition, to let you know how it went, whether it qualified for the North American Championships 2 weeks later, what my plan is for that, and what my overall goals are for the next year, because it's really important to have those goals so that you don't fall into this what do I do now and post-competition blues, which are very common among competitors. So, you know what I say. Eat clean, train dirty, think nerdy. Bye guys.